Thank you. Here we are at South by Southwest for the first time. It's really wonderful to be here. That was a strong statement. Me and my people, no one can tell me that me and my people don't have tremendous value. No one, ever. Our theme this morning is centering Blackness, educate, inform, and innovate. And by what I mean by centering is that we want to put Black people in the classroom in the middle. At the HistoryMakers, innovation is at our very core. We're committed to first-person testimony, authentic, real stories. Let's take a look. Oops. Okay, maybe it's not. Our stories give a light to our future. Sorry. Okay. As I was saying, our stories give a light to our future. I want to give a shout out to Carnegie Mellon University and their Entertainment and Technology Center, Michael Crystal and Brian Maher, as well as the late Howard Wackler, who I refer to as my godfather. 22 years ago, I called him and asked him to adopt us. I had no money, I only had my dream. I wanted to combine state-of-the-art technology with video oral history, and Howard heard my plea, and he wrapped his technology around our dreams. But little did we know that where society would be today, neither he or I, but here we are in 2024, and I'm asking myself, what is going on? Here you see me as a graduate of Harvard Law School. And from a legal perspective, I'm fascinated about the emergence of state rights. We haven't seen this since the early days of the United States. I live in fear of a full frontal attack on the teaching of Black history. There are anti-CRT laws that have been passed in 18 states. We have Alabama and Florida and Mississippi and Oklahoma and Tennessee, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky, Texas, where we're here, Utah, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, and New Hampshire. What is going on? Because once those laws are on the books, they will never change. And what does that mean? Because they're very vague. They say that they don't want children to feel discomfort or anguish, but what about the Black child? How are they feeling? I want to get personal here, because I was once, in 1963, I was a young Black child. There's me. I was the only Black kid in my class. And the only thing that we studied about Black people were George Washington Carver and his peanuts and slavery. And I literally could not believe that he could have done all those things with peanuts when all we had been were slaves. I mean, just didn't seem possible. And so one day, the teacher asked us to talk about our family backgrounds. And my classmates' hands went up like arrows to the sky. I'm part German, I'm part Italian, I'm part French. I'm literally cowering in the corner. I don't know what to say. I'm saying Negro, color, because it's before James Brown, I'm Black and I'm proud. And I said Native American, because most Black people think they have Native American in them. I could do a survey. This room doesn't seem like I could work on that survey. But anyway, and then I added in French, because my father had been stationed there, and I wanted to be along. Now, I knew I had lied. I felt the teacher knew I had lied. And that feeling of not knowing and not understanding stayed with me until I was at my sophomore year at Brandeis. Now, I would go on to Harvard Law School. I would practice as a corporate lawyer. Then I started my own, I was a cable administrator for the city, and then I started a production company, and then I had a home shopping channel, home shopping, right? Yep. That's part of my narrative. It went belly up. But all roads have led me to where we are now. And I just want to take you through what we are as an organization, as I talk about centering Blackness. What is the HistoryMakers? We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization headquartered in Chicago. We're the largest attempt to record the Black experience since the WPA slave narratives. This is where we're housed, and this felt like a magical moment this morning because Mike Michaud, I don't know if he's in the audience. If he is, I want him to stand because he's the reason we actually were part of this. We're in the largest facility for AV material built anywhere in the world. It's in Cultivates, Virginia. And then we're piped by 75 miles of fiber optic cable. That particular facility is where the federal government used to hide its money in case of a national disaster. It was built with the largest gift to date to the federal government of $163 million. But more importantly, you heard me talk about the slave narratives. Literally now, under one roof of the Library of Congress are the stories of the enslaved and the stories of the descendants of the formerly enslaved. I don't think it gets better than that. We define a history maker one of two ways. Someone who, in our world, they're Black, but someone who has made significant accomplishments in his or her own life. People are not born accomplished. I want to make a point about that. And then scholars came in to ask us to add people who knew particular information about our organizations, our events in time that are important to the African American community. We have 15 different categories. That was the underpinnings of the organization, that we wanted to be as broad as we could with our reach and what we were documenting. And so we're going to be adding 100 more scientists there. I love my scientists. The NFL, we just entered into a deal with them, and they will be donating production crews to travel around the city. And so we'll be coming back here, especially to Dallas, to record those. In the blue, or aqua, that's where we have not been to do interviews. But the other places, and in the yellowish, that's where we've done the most number of interviews. We still have a lot of work to do in Texas, and we hope that you will help us in that regard. We are, UT Austin is one of our subscribing institutions, so we're really sort of proud of that. I want to just say a little bit. Our interviews are 4 to 7 hours in length. We've recorded a total of 12,000 hours of testimony. The earliest recollection goes back to the 1700s. A lot of people don't really know about the 1700s and Black people, but we need to take the narrative back that far. We have done interviews in 451 cities and towns. The youngest person at the time of interview was age 28, Aisha McMillan, who was a prima ballerina. The oldest was 109, Louisiana Hines of World War II, Rosie the River. And I know we would always call, and her kids at that point were like 85. They were saying their mother was out. I mean, you go figure about that. We have long-standing, we really probably have about 30 people that are in their late 90s, early hundreds. We have rich and diverse content. There's thousands and thousands of stories. Even though we interview people, we're really interested in their stories. So whether it's identity formation or Black music, there are thousands of things, and I'm always surprised about that. And in preparation for today, I went in to look about Blackness, and I can tell you it's rich, and I really want now to teach a course about that. So I wanted to also say that this was our dream, to have a digital archive from the very, very beginning. If it weren't for Carnegie Mellon, we would never have been able to make this possible. So the first one to step forward about 7 years ago was Howard University. Then that was followed by Emory, Boston, Harvard University. And at the beginning of COVID, we were at 65, and now we're at 211. I'm thrilled, because what was all this work that we did if it wasn't going to be used? It's not possible. So if you're seeing if you're from a state or you're seeing an institution and you don't even know that you have it, take that into account. And what I'm really pleased, there are the public libraries that are coming on board with the digital archive, because everyone can get it in their homes without going into the library. We have faculty fellowships, and we have 2 of our faculty fellows here today. That's a program near and dear to me, and we're asking them to take apart their curriculum. And sometimes they go, whoa, we didn't know we signed up for that. And then we have student ambassadors, and they represent us on college campuses, and they meet with us. They have to research 4 hours in the archive. They have to write a weekly blog. And they did this wonderful thing on cornbread. I assigned them cornbread. There were things about cornbread I never knew. Corn po, cornbread with milk. I didn't know about that. So it was all found in the archive. So the other thing that we've been asking people, because, I got to a place where people were like, I was in an all-white audience. In fact, I went back to Interlochen Arts Academy, where I went to school. And I had these very talented theater people in front of me, and they were like, I gave them this assignment, and they go, we're not Black. And it created quite a, uproar. But the next day, they came with beautiful material. They did not know, someone went in to look for mental illness. They didn't know Herbie Hancock, the famous jazz artist. But they went in, and the poem was, because his mother had suffered from a mental illness, that the floors were made of glass. It was such a beautiful poem. And so I just, I'm looking at what kind of creativity is going to come out of this collection. So, wait, okay. The other thing, there was a woman named Yvonne DeHeath. She's a teacher. She's been with us. And she called me and she said, we're using the digital archive to teach vocabulary in context. I mean, I never would have thought of that. And so we're looking for this kind of innovation and what's going to come out of the collection. This, John O'Connor, and I'm hoping I can show this. I'm not sure I can. Well, maybe. No, I can't. But I want to just say that in Miami, at Miami Public Library, they were using the digital archive to do digital book clubs during COVID. And so we had convened a group of librarians saying, can you teach the others? And then we were doing introductions afterwards, and John O'Connor comes on and he goes, I hope you don't mind me showing this. And just because I don't want to mess around here with it, what he did, he took all the references of Charlotte. There were 600 references. And he literally, it only took him like 2 weeks to do this. On Fridays, he was saying he was doing. And he created this story map. And so there's a gavel for a lawyer. And so it takes to each part of the digital archive. And then if I pull back, you would see the 600 references. If I zoomed in, you would see this little cluster of interviews, which represents the HBCU, Johnson C. Smith. It's marvelous. And now, based on this, LA Public Library has come, and they're actually going to create a whole toolkit for other public libraries to follow. This is the kind of innovation I'm talking about. So I want to show one clip, and this is Alice Randall, she has been working with our content. She was a forerunner. She's been working with our content for now 12 years. She is an author, English teacher, teaches at Vanderbilt. She wrote The Wind Done Gone, which was the alternative story told from the slave perspective of Gone with the Wind. And she's just penned a new book called My Black Country about the relationship of blacks and country music at the same time that Beyonce's song is now taking over TikTok. So I want you to hear from her. Oops. Can we hear from her? Okay. It's not working. Okay. Well, I don't know how to. Hello in the back? Okay. We just held, when we sit down, we just held an Innovation and Pedagogy Conference in Atlanta just like almost a week ago. And there were our HistoryMakers, K-12 teachers, faculty, fellows, and librarians, and it was really quite magical. And this is what I'm excited about, because at a time that I'm really concerned about what's happening, and I don't know if we'll have to take things ultimately out of the classroom, but think about that little girl that I was. I didn't
I've
think
been working with the HistoryMakers archive for 12 years. I actually think that this archive is one of the most important cultural institutions in America and on the globe in terms of documenting the lives of people of color, but also documenting lives of resilience and resistance, and allowing us to have a way of looking at what does it mean to be in some ways extraordinary. All the history makers are in some way extraordinary, and that the best uses of the archive do not point towards exceptionality, but to the power of the community. The archive reinvests our commitment in curiosity, because you get the most out of it by going with a purpose and with intention, but also maintaining a flexibility, a willingness to be surprised by significant observations and to chase down those new observations that provoke new curiosities with a rigor. So the archive invites students to have this twinned approach. But you cannot fail to allow the archive to surprise you if you're going to get the most out of it. I have been using the HistoryMakers archive in my classroom for over a decade. Utilizing the archive in your classroom allows students to, 1, work with primary sources, 2, conduct independent ethical research, 3, introduce the basic skills of a live interview by allowing students to witness an exceptionally well-conducted live interview, including warm-up questions, key questions, and follow-up questions. 4, create opportunities for intellectual analysis that cannot at this time be performed by AI. 5, create opportunities to center Black voices. And 6, create hyper-relevant to individual students points of connection to any syllabus. Anything you're teaching, there is a relevant history maker. In my decade of experience with undergraduate students using the archive, I've observed that engagement with even a single interview requires and invites multivariable and multi-tiered analysis that sharpen thinking skills and research skills while deepening empathy and inviting creativity.
Thank you, Alice. That's why, we have star teachers. I'm really excited. We're starting small, but trying to expand. But I have 2 of our star faculty fellows here, Dr. Jana Duckett from Morgan State University, where she teaches social media strategy, digital media marketing, and even vlogging. And then we have Dr. Danielle Grace Singh, who focuses on cognitive changes associated with neurodegenerative diseases. I made it through that. I'm pleased to have both of them here with me to share the stage. I'm going to scoot over here in the chair, and I hope that we can have some questions from the audience.
Good morning, South by Southwest educators, and now hopefully new friends of the HistoryMakers. I bring you greetings from Morgan State University, thank you, located in the heart of Baltimore, Maryland, where we have a campus of over 170 acres, over 8,000 students teaming through 12 different schools. I happen to serve in the School of Global Journalism and Communication, where we have the distinction of having 5 history makers that also sit and serve on our SGJC faculty. So you can imagine when I learned about this innovation in teaching fellowship, I was energized and elated to do a deep dive and really understand how can I use this valuable resource to enhance my classes. And I quickly learned that not only was it a valuable repository and digital archive to integrate within my class, it aligned in several strategic areas. First, it gave me an opportunity to engage undergraduates in entry-level qualitative thematic analysis research. Secondly, it gave me an opportunity to support the university's mission of enhancing activity in the digital humanities, supporting the university president's goal of becoming one of the first HBCUs to reach R1 status. And thirdly, and most importantly, gave me an opportunity to enhance my pedagogical approach for a course that was severely under-resourced in the African American media experience. So for all these reasons, I'm so thankful to Dr. Richardson, my fellow History Maker colleagues, and the entire History Makers team for allowing me to join in this fellowship. I've focused on integrating the History Makers digital archive into 2 sections of my media literacy course. Now, media literacy is the ability to access, analyze, create, evaluate, and act on several forms of media. But this course takes it a step further in trying to understand the ways in which emergent media intersect with history and really have perpetual impact on culture and society and shaping those. Through the integration of the History Makers archive, I was able to blend creativity, research, and analysis in new ways within this course, helping students to conduct over 7,000 investigations during the semester. So we were able to extend the learning beyond what was in the textbook and how we'd always done the course and really enhance students' ability to do some archival research. So this is how we ended the semester. But this next slide, this is definitely how we started. So yes, as you can imagine, was an overwhelming experience for students at first, in the beginning of the semester. I quickly learned I had to really step back and scaffold assignments in ways that built their confidence in using the tool and gradually guided them in their engagement. Because for all of my students, this was the first time that they were seeing the archive, and for many of them, doing qualitative thematic analysis research. So this meant scaffolding the semester, starting with low-stakes assignments. So working with our digital humanities librarian to understand the various functionalities, search terms, and the various ways students can use the source. So we did workshops. Then we moved into an exercise that allowed them, it's called the Finding Yourself in the History Makers Digital Archive. And so they were able to craft and create personally meaningful searches and really find one-to-one connections with history makers. It made it personal for them. Then we moved into the actual thematic analysis coding work. So this involved breaking them into teams of 5, and each week, based on the media genre we were talking about, whether that was radio, the history of books, magazines, newspaper, the print revolution, and so on and so forth, they were using these coding sheets within their teams to each student would code 30 videos, and so each team was coding about 150 videos per week, and we did that for 7 weeks based on the media genre we were studying at the time. So they had thousands of these extractions from the interviews and the themes, the salient themes that they found from each one. And so at the end of the semester, they were ready to synergize those findings and really craft a final research paper, or they were able to put it into a mini documentary form. And the key research question we were trying to answer throughout the semester as they were looking through the videos is, what effect did media have in shaping culture and society as evident through the lens of the history makers? So we did a kind of a phase 1, phase 2 keyword search coding approach, and this allowed students to kind of categorize data systematically, first around the media genres. So they would look at books, radio, television, and then find all the results tied to those search terms. And then secondarily, they could move into more topical selections and searches within. This is an example of the coding sheet, so you really can't make out what it is. I'm sorry about that, but on the far left, they would code the history maker's name, the title of the history maker video. Then they would pull their extraction that's tied around their keywords, and then over on the right, they would answer that key question: what effect is media having on media and culture? Culture and society is evident through the history makers. So for an example, we coded one of Sonia Sanchez's videos, and she talked about how at one point in her career, she was being investigated by the FBI for teaching African American literature by Du Bois and Paul Robeson and Marcus Garvey. And so one of the students who logged her interview wrote down for the answer to the effect media was having: ideas contained in books have the power to inject disruptive ideas into the minds of the masses. These ideas can challenge norms, disrupt racialized systems, and oppressive social structures. Some books are to be feared. So not only were we talking about the books in terms of just the power of print, they were able to see it in real time through the lens of the history makers' lived experiences. All right, so coding, they did use the functionality of the history makers tool. It allows you to kind of put together a My Clips playlist. And so out of their 30 clips that they would code for the week, they wouldn't use all of them. They were asked to kind of search through and find the most salient themes within the videos that they coded. So this is an example when we were on the topic of film, salient themes that were coded there, another film sample playlist. And then this is a playlist that includes more of the media genres, as it was a playlist that they used for their final project. I'll play a sample from one of the final projects here. Oop, okay, let me go back. Okay, so this is a student final project, a mini documentary. I'll play just a minute or two from it, and it features Emmy Award-winning newscaster Andrea Roan, and also one of the first members of the Negro Ensemble Company, actress Denise Nicholas.
Hey you guys, my name is Camilla Campbell.
Hi, my name is Alicia Crawford.
Over time, television has developed tremendously, especially for those of African descent. Throughout the research that we've collected, we've noticed that television has shaped and changed society in many different ways. The real question is, what effect did television have on shaping culture and society as evident through history makers' oral narratives?
Do you know the only woman who was on television when I was a child? This is way back. Pauline Frederick. Do you remember Pauline Frederick? That's who was the only woman that I saw doing a news show on a regular basis, and she was a guest on Meet the Press.
Television has shaped African American culture and society in more ways than one.
It was a change. It was a big, big change as television became more, entrenched as far as a part of our culture generally, and for Black people too.
Such as increased representation, family.
Go ahead and advance it. And this quote kind of summarizes what students were telling me after this almost beta test of exploring how the impact of the HistoryMaker digital archive on the student experience. So the most rewarding aspect of this experience was the opportunity to delve into real life stories and witness firsthand the significant role media played in shaping cultural narratives, especially my own. And so as an educator, this is a win-win. This is all I could hope for. When I set out in the beginning of the semester to try to enhance the course, this is the main takeaway that I was hoping that students would get from this. So, what I've learned in this wonderful transformative learning journey. So a course like this, I had two sections. So I had one section with completely all freshmen and another section with upperclassmen. And so definitely the way you scaffold assignments and courses for freshmen was different than with upperclassmen, but it was still worth a rewarding process for both of them. The final takeaway is really, I think I would take the training wheels off a little bit earlier. I was very structured in terms of guiding them through the keyword searches, and really at the final, when they reached their final project, were they able to kind of have the creative freedom to develop their own search terms. And so I think I would incorporate that earlier going forward. Yeah. And so thank you for your time.
To my fellow South by Southwest conferees, I'm Dani Singh, professor of neuroscience at the Clark Atlanta University, a private, historically Black research university founded in 1865 and is located in Atlanta, Georgia. Prior to my tenure at an HBCU, I spent the majority of my professional training at predominantly white institutions, including Tulane, Harvard University, Baylor College of Medicine, Emory University, and Princeton, all with the goal of taking what I learned and porting it over to an historically Black college and university. Well, I joined Clark Atlanta University a decade ago with the selfish goal of recreating myself. African Americans disappear at an alarming rate from the STEM pipeline. This hemorrhage has meant that the percentage of STEM PhDs awarded to African Americans has remained stubbornly low at 2% for decades. For this reason, I've focused on pedagogy to build a strong science identity among our students and also to engender a passion for research. I place significant emphasis on exploring the ramifications of invisibility within these academic spaces and biomedical research spheres. However, I overlooked the importance of designing a curricula that cultivates a robust narrative to engage our students in the research culture. So I thought I was doing that. I was there after all. Generation Z has a way of offering humbling lessons. To address this oversight, I proactively integrated compelling narratives from the HistoryMakers digital archive into my courses. Thanks to the HistoryMakers, I would have a clear starting point for systematically addressing the fragmented and incomplete documentation of numerous achievements of African American scientists. Hence, the HistoryMakers became indispensable partners in my instructional pursuits. Together, we would convey a powerful message about the profound implications of categorization. Here is history maker Dorothy Roberts.
And so then, when there's certain biological consequences of belonging or being assigned to a particular race, those have to do with the impact of social status or social conditions on the body because you belong to that category. It's not natural. So the reason why blacks die earlier from all sorts of common diseases isn't because they're naturally prone to die of those diseases. It's because they suffer from the disadvantages of being categorized in a particular racial category.
Today I'm excited to share with you.
And so
Today I'm excited to share with you a groundbreaking project titled From Archives to Immersion, where we have pioneered the integration of the HistoryMakers digital archive with the immersive capabilities of virtual reality. This innovative approach does more than just bring historical narratives to life. It propels us into a new realm of survival stories and empirical research. By immersing subjects in VR environments that vividly recreate natural disasters and pandemics, we are now able to measure physiological responses in real time. This not only deepens our understanding of human physiology in relationship to stress and resilience, but it also introduces novel methodologies for conducting empirical research. We are stepping beyond traditional archival studies, and we're opening up new avenues for education, research, and storytelling. Now, this approach offers a dual benefit. It enriches our understanding of human physiology by providing a real-world context for fight or flight, a response that we have thoroughly categorized and understand how it's coded in the brain. So this is a topic that students are introduced to in our modules covering the nervous system, the endocrine system, cardiovascular system, and so on and so forth. It deepens our comprehension of historical events through the visceral reactions they evoke. Our project offers a unique lens through which to examine the intertwining of human history and our innate biological responses during natural disasters. Consider the example of severe dehydration, and this is a common cause of death during catastrophes. Through the VR environment, students can visualize and understand the cascading events of dehydration on the body, how it disrupts the delicate balance of the nervous system, affects cellular response, and then ultimately leads to organ failure. This hands-on approach transforms the learning experience from abstract memorization to concrete, empathetic understanding of human physiology under stress. As we integrate VR into education, we start with immersive storytelling, inspiring students to explore the physiological effects of stress. Using VR, we vividly recreate historical events like Hurricane Katrina, delving into the profound implications on the human body. This approach fosters empathy and scientific inquiry. Now, at the beginning of the VR journey, you meet history maker Paul Velto, who vividly sets the scene just hours before Hurricane Katrina strikes. Through the headset, you'll hear the tension and fear in his voice as he warns of the unprecedented nature of the approaching storm. He urges everyone to evacuate.
Something deep in my gut told me that and I've lived here all my life, and I've been through every possible hurricane that we've had, and I never really had a sense that that any of these other hurricanes were the potential for a catastrophe. But Saturday morning before it hit, I woke up and something just deep down inside said, this is going to be bad. And you better start telling all your friends to get out. The Red Cross has abandoned us. Somebody rolled in, a person who was on a respirator. Just rolled the bed, came up in a van, rolled the bed out of the van with the person in him, rolled it into the lobby of Southern University, found a plug, plugged it in, and left. And there was no medical staff there. There was nothing.
These firsthand accounts offer a poignant glimpse of the harrowing experiences of those caught in the midst of this natural disaster. Lastly, students are tasked with selecting a HistoryMakers clip that captures the essence of why such a catastrophe unfolded as it did. This may involve failures in public policy, implicit bias, or systemic barriers. Here is the clip they chose.
And so I think we were able to bring a very different perspective to the coverage. I remember standing, watching before we went down on the monitors, big giant monitors in the hallway. And I was standing next to Lou Dobbs, actually. He walked up and I walked up. And we were watching people at the convention center, holding up signs. We need water. And he said, exactly the opposite of what I was thinking. He said, how can anyone think this story is about race? At the moment I was thinking, wow, this story is so clearly about race. And I think that probably...
In conclusion, I would like to underscore the paramount significance of the HistoryMakers Digital Archive in amplifying Black narratives and ensuring the visibility of African Americans within historical and scientific narratives. The groundbreaking archive serves as a cornerstone of representation, safeguarding against the marginalization of diverse contributions and experiences. By integrating these narratives into educational materials, and more importantly, textbooks, we foster a more holistic understanding of history and science, enriching our collective knowledge. Initiatives like the HistoryMakers Digital Archives propel us forward toward a society that values and celebrates every story, every voice, advancing the cause of inclusivity and equity. Thank you, South by Southwest, and thank you, Juliana. You are a national treasure. You've changed the very way that I teach and instruct. You've broadened the scope of my research, and for this, I'm eternally thankful. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? Oh, they are. Okay. I see. Which strategies have you found to be effective in promoting collaboration and partnership between educators, historians, and technologists? We have, I think that's for us. We have actually been involved in, first of all, we involved educators in the creation, librarians first, and then educators, because we found out that sometimes educators weren't going into the libraries. But we go to conferences, we present, we encourage the people who work with us to serve on panels and present their research and writings. And we're still very much in the formative stages of our initiative, but we're really hoping, because what was this all worth? It cost us $36 million to put this collection together. And I really think that the traditional way that we've been approaching education around Black voices is not going to work going forward. And then what ethical considerations are necessary when immersing students in VR experiences? That's for you, Danny.
Thank you for asking that question, because we found that you can elicit a number of responses that certainly can harken back to experiences of students. And you have to be very, very careful. So I spend a great deal of time talking to my students about past trauma. Not necessarily asking them to divulge this, but to share with them that at any point that you feel uncomfortable with the narrative or narratives that we are constructing, you need not participate in that aspect. So we have to be very clear, because these are immersive environments. And perhaps some of you know that VR is used as a means to deal with and certainly helps persons who are dealing with phobias to extinguish that fear response. And so we do have students in our classes who do have phobias. I'm very, very aware of that. They often are very clear about those phobias, and they will divulge that even in an open setting. But then there are other times that we will talk about this. So there are certainly ethical implications. We follow the very same requirements for research and human subject research.
Thank you. We're really excited about the fact that STEM is being used. We actually had a professor at University of Michigan Medical School who was using it in his teaching. So there's a question about, is this archive continually added to with current HistoryMakers? Yes, there are actually 1,300 that we need to put on the digital archive by the end of December 2025. And it was always intended to have younger people in, so we're doing that. And they're very much generational differences that are interesting, but hopefully a chance for intergenerational communication. Someone also asked about the selection process. Do we take nominations? Yes, we do. And there's a place on our website called Nominate a History Maker, and we very much look at that. We actually have 15 advisory committees, so we submit those to them. We have a backlog now, but we do pay attention. And then, yes, hip-hop music and culture. Just interviewed someone named Tricky Stewart, who wrote Umbrella and has worked for Beyonce and Rihanna and Justin Bieber. So we're very interested in that, as a matter of fact. And I want to say Beyonce has a real major music archive. She has indexed everything, but there hasn't, on other cases, there hasn't been the documentation. How do you join the advisory committee? Just write to us once again on our website. We would be interested if you have specialty. We would be very interested in that. We really want to thank you for coming today. You know, I don't know, I was asking them, I wanted to ask you the question because, you know, they apply for a fellowship. It's advertised online, or we put it through our listserv. And so they responded, and then what happened at that point? Because we asked them, and I don't think they were really aware that we're like, you gotta tear apart your curriculum. You gotta like center us in the curriculum. And we met for a week in Chicago this summer, though. Yeah, Gina was, it was complicated a little bit. Mainly because, you know, people, I think it's one to say it, but it's another to really do it. So I want you to talk about the centering.
Yes, so it was an intensive process. So for educators, you have your syllabus, you have your routine, and you make enhancements here and there each semester, but you really challenged us to rip everything apart and really start from scratch. For the media literacy course, my course, it was almost it was an organic process because, as you've said before, the digital archive has America's missing stories. And I can attest to the fact that in the books that I have for my courses, media literacy, those stories are missing. And so I would have to go out before integrating the archive and pull, Toni Morrison's clip about the white gaze when I'm talking about books, or talk about Souls of Black Folks from W.B. Du Bois. But to bring in the archive, it was already embedded, it was already in there, and so it was difficult and challenging, but well worth it.
Yeah.
I would say the same. You required us to transform our course. You did not want us to add something on like an appendage. It really had to be central to your pedagogical approach. And for me, that was challenging because I didn't know where to start.
That's right, no grazing.
Exactly, and the first thing you began to think of, that one or two stories that you came across during your formative years. So you want to make sure playing large is something about George Washington Carver. You want those things there. But unfortunately, that's not going to work for an intro bio course or human physiology. And it isn't going to work from the standpoint of our very conservative views of what must be taught. And if you're adding something, wouldn't it be true that something is then being removed? So I had to be certain that my work was still meeting the standards and that whatever I was adding was extending that experience for the students with the same sort of rigor.
Yeah.
And that was important.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times I needed to use first person narratives, but connect that to their journal articles and truly their empirical research.
Right. Yeah, we really like this, and we're very much in the learning process. There's 3 other questions. In terms of confirming if anyone can go to the website, everybody can go to the website. The digital archive costs $30 a month if you are not in a subscribing institution or a place where there's a library. Yes, fellowships for K through 12 teachers. We require that you meet on Saturday mornings, but we have a working group of wonderful K through 12. And then for that person who lives in a state that is a non-Black history-friendly state, I'm worried about that. But anyway, it's okay. But there is a free subscription, because we're in one now. There's a free subscription available, and we would work with you. We want to get the content out. We just ask that you be authentic in working with us. Thank you.
Thank you.